Hello, everyone. Welcome to our community webinar. My name is Patty Camacho. I am with the Seattle Department of Neighborhoods, and I'll be facilitating this discussion. Next slide. Before we begin, I'd like to mention a few housekeeping items. We are using a new webinar platform, and some of the user interface may look different from what we've had before. Closed captioning is available, as well as live captioning. Please select the small keyboard icon of 3 dots to initiate this function. It might be 3 dots, it might say more options at the bottom of your screen. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared. To receive a copy of the presentation, please contact us at COVID-19 Community Webinars at seattle.gov or call 206-684-0464. The presentation will also be available on our blog Front Porch, and those links will be posted in the chat feature throughout. For the Q&A session, please use the chat feature, or you can press *6 to unmute yourself if you're on the phone. Questions for every speaker will be asked directly after their presentation. We will also have an opportunity for more questions at the end during the Q&A portion. My team or I will read out any questions we see in the chat feature and ask that answers be provided audibly and not typed within the chat. There will also be opportunities for phone questions after. Again, *6 to unmute your phone. In order to bring you the most relevant information, we have created a survey for your feedback. The link to the survey will be posted in the chat at the beginning and at the end of the presentation. We have begun incorporating neighborhood community and community members and organizations to present information about work going on in our communities. This is an opportunity to highlight work related to COVID-19 as well as reopening. If your organization would like an opportunity to be a future presenter, please email us at COVID-19 Community Webinars, and we'll get back to you. Today, we will be hearing from King County Executive's Office, the Seattle Department of Education and Early Learning, the Seattle Public Schools, the Seattle Department of Constructions and Inspections, and Seattle Public Utilities. In addition, we will be hearing from community partners, Washington Homeowners Resource Center. To begin our presentation, I'd like to introduce Division Director for External Affairs at Department of Neighborhoods, Wang Wang. Wang Wang?
Thank you, Patty. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wang Wang, and I'm the External Relations Division Director for Department of Neighborhoods at City of Seattle. I would like to start by thanking everyone for joining us today. Taking this Friday afternoon to join us is really appreciating that. This webinar is a collaboration with various departments within the City of Seattle, King County, and community partners. And to start with, wanted to share a couple of announcements highlighting some news from the Department of Neighborhoods. Our department Neighborhood Matching Fund program, Community Partnership Fund, opened on July 15th. For a little background on this program, in 1988, the Neighborhood Matching Fund was created to provide matching dollars for neighborhood improvement, organizing, or projects developed and implemented by community members. Some examples include funding of the South Park welcome sign, funding for the creation of the Fremont Trail, and I think many of you know the Fremont Trail, and playground improvements around the city and schools. The total amount of funding available for this round is $750,000. The application deadline is September 15th at 5 p.m. So again, the application deadline is September 15th at 5 p.m. For more information, please visit our website. There's a link in it in the chat box. And if you go to seattle.gov neighborhoods/programs and services/neighborhoods matching fund, you will find information there. And feel free to also email us at nmfund@seattle.gov. So that's nmffund@seattle.gov. Our second announcement is that the Department of Neighborhood is also seeking proposals for the Duwamish River Opportunity Fund, also known as DWARF. And this fund is to help community-based projects that improve the quality of life for communities in the Duwamish River Valley. The total amount of funding available for this round is $250,000, And the application deadline is September 21st at 5 p.m. So again, the Duwamish River Opportunity Funds applications are due on September 21st at 5 p.m. And the DWAF applications are reviewed by community members who live, work, or receive services in the Duwamish River Valley area and have a clear understanding of community needs and resources. So at this time, we're also looking for community grant reviewers to assist us in this process. If you're interested in applying to be a grant reviewer or interested in applying for the grant, please visit our webpage. Again, going to seattle.gov/neighborhoods/programs and services/Duwamish River Opportunity Fund. And you can also email us at drof@seattle.gov. So again, that's drof@seattle.gov. So we would like to thank you all for letting us share the information we have and hope that you will share with us your questions, thoughts that you have, comments you have, and concerns. A reminder that you can type your questions and comments on these topics or any other topics that you're interested in using the webinar's chat feature. So thank you for again joining us today and stay healthy. Back to you, Patty.
Thank you very much, Wang Wang. I'd like to continue with our presentation and happy to introduce King County Executive Office, from King County Executive Office, Kylie Knight. Callie?
Hey, Patty, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Callie Knight here from Executive Constantine's office. So just to give a quick update on our facilities work in response to COVID-19. So we have currently 2 isolation and quarantine sites operational and accepting people who can't safely isolate or quarantine if they're experiencing symptoms of COVID or they have tested positive for COVID at their homes. One is in Issaquah and one is at North Aurora in the city of Seattle. And as a reminder for folks, there are lots of different kinds of people who have access to this service since COVID hit. I think we've served over 1,400 individuals and families, people who live in intergenerational homes, people who have an immunocompromised family member, people who just don't have a home, people who have traveled here. We had one instance where we hosted a number of crew members from an American seafoods liner after a COVID outbreak on their fishing boat. And so those 2 operational sites are currently housing 42 people. Our numbers have been trending slightly upwards since we've seen the transmission rate go up. I think at our lowest a few weeks ago, we had a low of 29 individuals, but we're at about 42 today. So that's one update. I know that there are many people who call into this webinar who are interested in hearing an update about our Elliott Interbay site, where we've placed some modular units that will house a small number of Catholic Community Services men who have been experiencing homelessness as a way to de-intensify our homeless shelters. That's another intervention that we've taken that's been incredibly successful. And I did get sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Sorry. I did get an email update from our facilities team just today saying that they believe it'll be at least 2 more weeks until they have a clear timeline for moving those individuals and that programming into the site. So stay with me. I promise I'll have a more concrete update for our next webinar. With that, I don't know, we're a little early. Did my colleague Brad Finegood from Public Health Seattle King County join the call yet?
I don't believe he has.
Okay, Patty, he was going to be on a call until 2:45. So I think that is mostly my update. I'm happy to talk a little bit about masks, and then maybe Brad can go later once he's able to join, whatever
That
works
sounds
best
great.
for you guys. Great. Okay, so
Please continue.
yeah, I am also helping to oversee the distribution of the 25 million cloth and disposable masks that King County purchased for our residents. And we had our first successful standalone distribution event down in Federal Way on Tuesday. We'll be up in Shoreline next week, and we're working with the mayor's office on identifying a date and a location for the city of Seattle. And so I want to share just the website that we're posting all of our mask resources on. So it's just www.kingcounty.gov/mask distribution. If you are a Seattle resident who is interested in accessing a cloth mask for you and your family, we have information on who to contact at the city. We've given the city 240,000 cloth masks to get out to community members. So please visit that website and take a look at who, the city contacts to see how you can access some of those supplies. We've also been running a successful partnership with the Seattle Chamber, the Seattle Southside Chamber, and the Bellevue Chamber to get what we're calling Safe Start kits out to our business community, working with small businesses, ethnic chambers of commerce, and business owners all around the county, including in our unincorporated areas. I believe they had a successful distribution event, or might be in the middle of a distribution event in Soto right now, but they created a website. If you are a business owner or you know someone who might benefit from gaining access to some cloth masks, disposable masks, or hand sanitizers, you can visit www.safestartkingcounty.com. I'm typing that into the chat as well. And they have a few distribution events coming up for small businesses. And then they also, if you're a business owner and you can't make an in-person event, they just charge a small nominal fee for shipping, and you can get your kit shipped to you or your business. So there are a lot of great resources on those two websites I just posted. We want to make sure that people are using their masks, and it's particularly timely with the governor's mandate to wear masks. And so if anybody has any questions about our mask program, please visit that website, or you can email me at cnight, CKNIGHT @kingcounty.gov, and I also just posted my email in the chat box. With that, I'm just going to check one more time. Hey, Brad, did you join just yet, or are you ready to give a public health update? Okay, Patty, it sounds like he hasn't joined just yet. So that's going to conclude my comments, and then maybe we can come back to him when it's convenient in the agenda.
Thank you, Callie. Yeah, we'll definitely come back to him. I know he has some important updates, and very eager to learn from them. At this point, actually, Callie, if anyone has any questions for Callie, I think I'm going to hold on until Brad comes back. Callie, is that okay? I don't see any questions in the chat.
That sounds great. I know that he was planning on being on the call between 2:45 and 3.
Great. So I will come back to you with any questions. I don't see any currently. So thank you, Callie.
Yep, thanks.
And I have a question. This is Ginger Kwan of Open Doors for Multicultural Families. For the PPC, I was wondering, do you have the clear plastic, that kind of cover the shield for essential workers, not just only the healthcare worker like our staff who are in the front line delivering food to families or individuals? Are we able to get those?
Yeah, Ginger, thanks so much for your question, and thanks. I know that we got a nice order fulfilled for Open Doors with your staff member, Joy Sebe. Unfortunately, the program that I'm running does not have face shields, thermometers, gloves, gowns, any of those other types of PPE that we've been providing for the tier 1 and 2 and 3 workers. But we do have a program through our Office of Emergency Management that and our public health department that does provide different kinds of PPE outside of just the cloth and disposables that I am in charge of helping to get out into the community. So I'd be happy if you want to shoot me an email to connect you with who might be able to help with that other kind of PPE.
That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, Callie.
Yeah, absolutely. And Patty, it sounds like Brad just joined.
Yes.
So
So Brad, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're on the air.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Hi, everybody. Apologize about running a little bit late. My name is Brad Feingett. I am with Public Health Seattle King County. Thank you for having me. So a couple of updates. I don't know if it was talked about earlier, but Governor Inslee sent out, had a press conference and to announce further restrictions on gatherings across the state as numbers continue to go up. Case counts continue to go up across the state and here locally in King County. Additionally, if it wasn't announced, there are some more ratcheting down, especially in public places, bars, no indoor services at bars, breweries, taverns, regardless of whether food is served or not, limited indoor seating at restaurants to members of the same household, because cases continue to go up, and they are going up in a pretty startling way. That is, again, throughout the state and in King County. In Yakima, where cases were going up, they've done really well to distribute masks, and that has helped. And case counts continue to go up really tremendously on the east side of the state. Additionally, recently the Center for Disease Control released recommendations on isolation following a positive test. And so it used to be 14 days of isolating and quarantining following a positive test, and that is now the number of days has been reduced to 10 days. Most of the transmission rate happens between 4 to 9 days. Case counts are here. I'm sorry. So case counts in King County, there have been 14,047 cases reported since the beginning of COVID, and there have been 213 cases reported in the last day. Just for context, the highest number of cases reported previously in one day in the county was 221. So just short of that, and that was at the height of the growth in late March. So our numbers continue to rise and continue to be something that we need to take a lot of precautions around. Hospitalization numbers continue to stay pretty flat and low, although there were 28 new hospitalizations since yesterday, and that number is a lot higher than recent weeks and months, bringing the total hospitalization count to 1,866. And there were 2 new deaths reported yesterday in King County, bringing that number to 638. Also, if you take a look on our public-facing dashboard, there's a key indicator dashboard, and it shows you where we're at with some of the metrics that we would need to move phases, although there is a temporary restriction on any counties asking for phase movement. One of the items I really like to keep an eye on is the effective reproductive number. And remember that number, it's really important to keep that number under 1. So if one person passes it to less than one person and on to less than one person, that number will eventually get to 0. If that number is above 1, then it becomes a multiplication effect. And so currently the best estimate is that our current reproductive rate is 1.7 with a error range from 1.4 to 1.9. So that means that the number of people it continues to grow and increase the number of people that are getting COVID. So that is a huge concern, and that is something that we are watching. We know that the number of young people that are getting COVID continues to go up, and that is something that we will continue to watch and continue to be concerned about and continue to do outreach around. Items around healthcare system readiness. it continues to be sufficient. We have the appropriate number of hospital beds available should we need them. We also have isolation and quarantine beds available. I don't know, Kelly, if you've talked about it, but the number of people in isolation and quarantine across the county in our locally funded, operated isolation and quarantine has gone up in recent weeks. But for right now, we really appreciate everybody staying home when they can and limiting trips outside. If you are in a public place to wear masks, most people seem to be really compliant with the mask wearing, and that is great. If people start to show signs or symptoms, to please call the King County hotline for COVID right away, and to go into isolation right away, to go into self-quarantine. If people are in a household where they cannot quarantine safely, to let folks know when they call the COVID hotline, and we will be able to help people isolate safely at a very comfortable facility locally. So once again, the phone number for the COVID call center is 206-477-3977, and that is from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that is the update currently from from COVID health, from public health. And thank you everybody so much.
Thank you very much, Brad, for that very informational presentation. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions for King County, either Callie Knight or Brad Finegood. You can hit *6 on your phone to unmute, or you can voice your questions now. Are there any questions for them? You can also type your questions into the chat. Seeing none and hearing none, I'm going to move on. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Callie.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you so much.
You can continue to type in questions in the chat feature, and we can read them out at the end. If any of our presenters, due to timing, have to step off the webinar, we're happy to pass those questions along and get anyone any answers they may need. Thank you. So now I'd like to continue on and introduce, for recovery and opening portion, Director of Department of Education and Early Learning, Dwayne Chappelle. Director Chappelle, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for introducing me, and good afternoon, everyone. As Wang Wang said, I am the proud director of DEAL. And so today what I'll be doing is sharing with you some updates from our early learning division regarding the Seattle Preschool program and Childcare. So if you can, and I said Wing, I'm sorry, Patty, I know that's you. You can go to the next slide. So our department is proud to invest in the family's education, preschool and promise levy funds to support our Seattle Preschool program. The Seattle Preschool program offers high quality preschool to 3- and 4-year-olds in our city. And we are still accepting applications this fall, and interested families can apply at www.seattle.gov/preschool or email and call us to learn more. Naturally, due to the COVID-19, there are many unknowns remain for Seattle Preschool program opening this fall, all of which are that we are tracking closely. We are working diligently in partnership with our Seattle Preschool program providers, our good partners, the Seattle Public School District and Public Health Seattle King County, to develop the safest preschool model for 2020-21 school year. And just to let you know that some of the things that we are evaluating might include like programming and thinking about like the number of days per week, options for in-person, remote, or hybrid programming. We're looking at health and safety precautions, such as like class size, or should I say classroom size, social distancing, masks, and so forth. And then the other piece that we're evaluating is tuition. because programs may be modified or interrupted this year because of COVID, and reduced rates for families who pay are an option this year. So those are some of the things right there. And if you don't mind, you can go to the next slide. So I want to actually start off by saying that as a dad of 4 beautiful children, I truly know how important access to quality, affordable childcare is for working families. And our team at Deal is working hard to develop solutions that really is going to meet the childcare needs of our Seattle families, especially now under COVID. And the first important update is really that childcare is open. It always was and has been since the beginning of or should I say since beginning of the COVID pandemic. Childcare has been considered an essential business or activity, and at no point were childcare providers mandated to close. So with that said, the individual childcare providers are making their own decisions about whether or not to remain open. So families should continue to contact their providers directly for information related to the hours of service. A couple other things. The Washington State Department of Health provides guidance on safety measures that licensed childcare providers should take to provide the safest environment for their staff and families. And on July 22nd, the guidance was updated then. And some of their key recommendations are here on the slide. And for childcare providers that Deal works with, our team ensures that providers really have the most up-to-date recommendations. And we have been even provided masks, hand sanitizers, thermometers to our sites. So you can actually go to the next slide. Thank you. So Deal continues to offer child care financial support for eligible families through our Child Care Assistant Program, or those of you may call it CCAP. We have about, I don't know, maybe about 180 providers participating throughout the city. And there are 4 key eligibility requirements for CCAP. And they are: 1, families must live in Seattle. Parents or the guardian, they must be employed or enrolled in a qualified education or job training program. The third eligibility requirement is that they must meet the income guidelines based on family size. And the fourth requirement for CCAP is children, or should I say children who are participating, they must be under the age of 13. And we have a screening tool on our website for those of you that may be interested, and it can be accessed. You can check it out at seattle.gov/CCAP, CCAP, that's CCAP. Or you can email us or call our team directly to learn more. All right, and you can go to the last slide. And so right now, Deal is currently partnering with Seattle Parks and Rec to develop our citywide plan for the 2021 school year. These efforts are ongoing, and they're made even more urgent given the announcement our good partners at Seattle Public Schools had earlier this week about beginning the school year off remotely. So anything we develop will be in alignment with, or should I say, should be in alignment to the Safe Start Washington phases and the Seattle Public Schools District's plan. And just so you know, we are aspiring to make this as seamless and helpful to our families as possible. So really wanted to thank you all for giving me this time to share this information with you.
Director Chappelle, thank you very much for your presentation. I know how hard you and your Deal staff work on all of these programs. I do know you are pressed for time, so I'm going to open it up now. If there are any questions for Director Chappelle, And the Department of Education Early Learning, you can ask now. You can type your question into the chat feature or hit *6 to unmute your phones. There will also be a DOE representative on the line at the end for Q&A.
Hi, yes, I have a question for Director Chappelle.
Please.
Thank you for your presentation. This is Wang Wang. My daughter is actually a preschool teacher and their school is starting back up this fall. And so I was curious about whether if there's a requirement or some policy of requiring preschool teacher staff, childcare providers to get tested regularly for COVID-19. And if they are required to do so, how often do they have to get tested? Thank you.
Director Chappelle, you may be
sorry.
muted. There you go.
I did mute myself.
No worries.
So basically, daily health screenings are recommended, and if a positive test happens to occur, then the program site does close. And so yes, I hope that answers your question right there. And I also see that there are, so Patty, how would you like me to address the questions in the chat box? Do you want me to have someone follow back up with you, or?
If you can answer them audibly, that would be great. And then if it requires more in-depth, a more in-depth answer, we can definitely reach out to people with that question for you.
Okay, so I'm trying.
Let me read this out,
Yep.
and then maybe you can answer it. Oh, I think you just answered that one. So I don't see any other questions.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. I did. I saw that before I started talking. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
So if there are any other questions, anyone on the phone or on your computer with your microphones, you can unmute now. For Director Chappelle. Seeing none and hearing none, I think we're going to move on. Director Chappelle, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and thank you, Ann Wang.
Of course. Again, I want to remind people there will be a question and answer portion at the end, and we will have a deal representative at that time. Moving on, I would now like to introduce Sherry Cox from the Seattle Public Schools. Sherry, are you on the line?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Can we go to the first slide? Actually, maybe the second slide. Just first of all, thank everybody for being on the call today. And thank you, Dwayne and Deal staff for your partnership. And the rest of the city partners on this call. King County Health has been also a great resource for us as a school district. As Dwayne kind of stole my real thunder here, as you know, Superintendent Juneau did make an announcement that she is recommending to her school board that will vote on August 12th that we open in a remote setting. I don't want to say similar to what we had because I think our systems in place to respond so quickly were less than subpar in some places. So I just want to first take this slide to just center us in our work in Seattle Public Schools is that we are going to continue to center our thinking and our decision making around students of color who are furthest from educational justice. And that's called out in our strategic plan loud and clear with a very intentional, specific focus on our African-American boys and teens. So like I had said, we had heard through various community meetings that our work from March through June did not meet many students and family needs. And so we are committed to doing better as we move ahead. Next slide, please. We're going to continue. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide because our friends over at the health department just talked about the reasons why superintendent made this recommendation. We are not in control with the COVID-19 infection, and we did not think it was wise to put a large number of people together in a small indoor spaces, especially some of our older buildings with less than great ventilation. We believe our HVAC systems are all well above standards, but we do know we have buildings where we can't open the windows, for example, because of the age and conditions of those spaces. So next slide, please. And here's where Superintendent Juneau is recommending that we start the school year in a remote environment. We will, though, have some students in person, and probably to start, we know we will need to be providing some special education services in an in-person setting, although we are still in negotiations with our teachers union to work out all of the details of this. And as I had mentioned, our school board will take action on this recommendation at a board meeting on August 12th. On August 5th, we will be having an open work session to discuss some more of the specifics so that our school board can be caught up on what staff has been up to and what we're thinking. Next slide, please. As I had mentioned, so what can you expect from us as we enter into this next phase of schooling is that we're going to continue to center our students furthest from educational justice. We are working hard with our educators to get them up to speed in a remote learning environment. This is a new muscle that we are all building together with our educators. We're going to be providing training so that we can have more live, high quality remote instruction with a more predictable and consistent schedule and platform for our families and students. We are also going to ensure that racial equity training that is focused on student belonging, family partnership, and interrupting implicit racial bias is all in place before school starts. We're going to ensure that our students with special needs are provided instruction in alignment with their IEPs, their individual learning plans, including in-person small group instruction for students who require more intensive services. Our next slide, please. We're going to continue to prioritize the mental health and wellness of our students and our families as we reopen school in this remote environment. We're going to continue our partnerships with some of our community-based mental health providers. We heard from families loud and clear that they are very concerned about their students' mental health and wellness in this isolated time. And so we're committed to serving those needs as well as the academic needs. We're going to continue to partner with our friends at the Seattle Council PTSA and other community partners, including our friends at the city, so that we can work on childcare needs and as well as how we can support our families in the learning at home. And like Mr. Chappelle said, childcare is one of our top priorities in thinking that through, and how do we continue to meet families' needs so that we can get families back to the workplace if necessary. And then we're going to continue to offer our meal sites across the city, including some of the delivery systems that we had set up. We served over 1 million meals during the COVID time. And so that is one of the things I think that we as a system were able to stand up pretty quickly and meet the needs as we saw them and continue to evolve through this process. Our website will have updated frequently asked questions. I know our team is working on finalizing those now, where there will be more information for families to go to. So for those interested, if you keep checking our website for up-to-date information as the situation continues to evolve. Next and last slide. And I'm here for questions if anybody has any questions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sherry.
My email address is not correct on that slide, so I'll put it in the chat box.
Thank you for catching that. Yeah, go ahead. If anyone has any questions for Sherry, please.
Yeah, Sherry, thank you very much for your presentation. This is Ginger Kwan of Open Doors for Multicultural Families. And I have a question about how, what is school's plan to engage families who have limited English proficiency in 3 different ways. For example, how to support them to equip it with technology they needed, and how to make sure that they have the Wi-Fi access. And also the third thing is, how can parents who are not technology savvy to learn how to access, to use the technology so they can actually use that to communicate with school. And the last part is, what is the language access plan to do that? Because in the past 4 months now, we have heard from families we serve. Families are not getting contacted by school, and these are families who have limited English proficiencies.
That's a great series of questions. Thank you for asking those. So as far as starting with I think I got your points here. As far as technology needs for EL families, as well as for all families, we are committed to getting devices to every single K-12 student in our system. We believe that we reached the high school and middle school students, probably not all, but with our one-to-one computer rollout, and thanks to some of our partners like Amazon, we reached about 9,000 families with getting elementary students devices. That's by no means all of our students. And so our next hurdle is to get technology one-to-one devices for every single student K-12 in our system. So those orders have been placed, and that is our commitment. We are working on setting up family resource centers, I think is what we're calling them, that will be across the city for families to come in. We will have interpreters on site where families can come in, pick up the technology, the computer if needed, and then sit down in a safe COVID way to learn about some of the technology features. We have videos online that I believe have been translated into our top 7 languages that can help families learn about some of our platforms, but we have a long way to go in this area. And I don't know if you were at the meeting that we recently held with community-based partners that support EL families. They gave us some wonderful insight into how we can get better. And so if you weren't there, I'd love to, not during this call, but offline, learn how you think we can better support EL families. As far as Wi-Fi access goes, if you've heard the superintendent speak recently, you will hear her talk about that this is not necessarily a school district's problem to solve. This is a community's problem to solve. We believe that at this point, broadband access for all is like having a sewer hookup to your house or water. So we are going to continue to advocate that at the city level and at the state level. And I wish we could say we had luck at the national level, but we won't this time. But that is a priority of us for advocacy. And so I'd encourage everybody on this call to continue to push on that as well. I don't know if I got all of your questions.
Yeah, and Sherry, thank you for answering the questions, and we will definitely more than happy to work with you and to learn more about what school has planned to do, engage families who have limited English proficiency, because 95% of the families we serve, with majority also live in Seattle School District. We heard a lot of challenges there, and we are here to help. We want to make sure that the school actually have a language access plan, if that's something that can be implemented effectively to ensure that teachers know how to access to interpreters, or you have bilingual staff, family engagement staff available for linking the families to schools, to teachers. Those are very helpful. So I'll contact you and we can talk offline later on. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great. And we were, like, I know last night, for example, the Chinese Information Service Center hosted an event that started at 9 p.m. because that's when families could be available to learn about what Superintendent Juneau had announced. And so we're trying to utilize community-based partners to reach out to those families where we have struggled as an organization to reach out to effectively. So yes, please do reach out to me. I'd love to get you on our list of places to go and talk.
Thank you, Ginger, for that question, and Sherry for those answers. I'm just, for anyone who's on the phone, I just want to say that Sherry's email address is different from what we have on our slides. It is SKKOKX@seattleschools.org. At this time, are there any other questions for Sherry? Okay, seeing none and hearing none. Sherry, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks for having us.
At this time, I would like to continue on in our program and invite Dulcie O'Sullivan with Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections. Dulcie, are you there?
I am. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Dulcie O'Sullivan. I work with the Department of Construction and Inspections, and I lead a program called Renting in Seattle, which basically is the main point of contact for any tenant or landlord in Seattle who is looking for information about tenant protections in the city. We also have a website and translated materials. So today I'm just going to focus on the temporary COVID-19 legislation that's in place. That would include the statewide moratorium, and then also the city's plans for the COVID recovery period, which would apply once the civil emergency and or the moratorium ends. So we can go to the first slide, please. And we can go to the next one. Thank you. So the current statewide order, and I actually asked for this information to be updated earlier because yesterday it was announced that the governor intends to extend the statewide moratorium through October 15th. But it wasn't an official extension as of yet. And my understanding is that there will be some stakeholder discussion around the extension and whether any concessions will be granted to the landlords, because right now it's very, very restricted as to how you can terminate a tenancy. So basically the moratorium bans all residential evictions except when there's an imminent threat to health and safety, or there's significant property damage that happened or that was unknown to the landlord prior to the outbreak, or the owner elects to sell or occupy the rental property and provides 90 days advance notice. So currently all residential evictions are banned except for under these conditions. The moratorium currently covers also transitional housing, leased lots for mobile homes and campsites, which would not traditionally be included under tenant protections, but those were expanded to try and cover everybody. The moratorium also prohibits enforcements of agreements to vacate. So if somebody signed a mutual termination or signed an agreement to say that they were going to vacate the unit and now they can't because of COVID-19, the moratorium protects tenants from being forced to move on that. Sorry. Also, it prohibits landlords from moving tenants to a lesser unit. If they can't pay rent on their current unit and there's a cheaper unit in the building, the landlord cannot make a tenant move into a less expensive unit. Next slide, please. Also, late fees or the threat of late fees or any charges for non-payment of rent effective as of February 29th, they're not allowed. Also, units that did not become occupied because of COVID-19, that the tenants cannot be charged for those units. Also prohibits charging for units that were left by renters due to COVID-19 needs of their own or others. The current moratorium also suspends rent increases and increases to security deposits. It also establishes that owed rent can't be pursued as a collectible debt or through any court action unless a landlord can prove that the tenant was offered a payment plan reasonably based on their specific circumstances and then refused or failed to comply with those terms. Next slide, please. So that's the moratorium. Now I'm going to focus on the COVID-19 recovery period plan that Seattle City Council put in place. So there were two main bills, Council Bill number 119784, which is about the termination of residency. So after the emergency, civil emergency is declared over and or the moratorium ends, these protections will go into place. So non-payment of rent will be a defense to eviction within 6 months of the moratorium expiring. So that's different than a ban on evictions. It means that the court will have to consider non-payment as a defense to eviction. The tenant has to certify financial hardship, and a lot of people ask, how is that done? Unfortunately, the ordinance does not specify, but we would be telling tenants that they need to get legal counsel about that. Usually certifying means through a court, but again, the ordinance doesn't specify. So for non-payment of rent, the appropriate type of notice is a 14-day notice. And for the purposes of the COVID recovery period, it has to include the following language. And there it is, italicized. If you can't pay rent during or within 6 months after the end of the mayor's moratorium on evictions, i.e. also the state moratorium, your inability to pay is a defense to eviction that you may raise in court. So that language has to be on any 14-day notice that's issued. If it isn't, it makes the notice defective. And if the tenant reaches out to the department, we can actually require the landlord to rescind that notice, which means they'd have to withdraw it and then they'd have to reissue it all over again. So also the deficiency would be also a defense to eviction. No attorney fees are rewardable either under this termination protections. Okay, next slide. So Council Bill 119788 applies to residential rent agreements. And again, it applies during and up to 6 months after the civil emergency ends and or the moratorium ends. For rent that is 1 to 2 months overdue, it can be paid in 3 to 5 consecutive equal monthly installments. For 2 months or more, it would be 6 consecutive equal monthly installments, or the landlord and tenant can mutually agree on an alternative payment plan schedule between them. The payment plan automatically becomes part of the rental agreement, and no late fees or interest allowed for up to 12 months after the civil emergency ends. So last slide, please. So for resources, we would suggest that you try and go to the seattle.gov/renting in Seattle. I keep that updated on a daily basis. The website has information on COVID, but it's a website in general about everything to do with renting in Seattle. We have flyers translated into the 12 primary languages other than English spoken in Seattle. There are 2 flyers. There's one on the moratorium and there's one on the COVID-19 rental protections. And so we would encourage you and any community partners to distribute that web address and or print off the flyers and make them available to folks in the community. We have a helpline, which is 684-5700, and that is open during business hours, Monday through Friday. And then 211 is the central referral agency for basic needs in King County, including rent assistance. There will be some announcement in the coming weeks about money that's being made available for rent assistance in the city of Seattle. It just hasn't been exactly organized about who's going to distribute the monies. It'll probably be, again, community partners that already work with human services, but there will be some money available for rent assistance. And then if you have any questions or you need any information about renting in Seattle, or if you'd like training for your group, please contact me and we'd be happy to set something up. I really just encourage everyone to share this information because housing is such a fundamental security, and the folks that are most at risk, unfortunately, are the most vulnerable folks we have in our community, and they really need this information so that they know what the protections are at the moment. Thank you.
Dulcie, thank you so much for your presentation.
You're
I'm going
welcome.
to ask if you could maybe mute your microphone at the moment.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. This is definitely questions. We get questions about housing often, and very, very important information. So I'm going to open it up now for anyone who has any questions on renting or housing assistance for Dulcie. You can hit *6 on your phone, or you may unmute your microphones at this time. You can also use the chat feature and type in your question, and we're happy to read it out loud. Are there any questions for Dulcie?
I have a question.
Please.
My name is Osvaldo, and I have a question for Dulcie regarding small or individual landlords. So what happens to those small individual landlords? I'm thinking of folks like seniors who might sublease their rooms in their house or have a second house they rent out. What if they're not able to receive rent payments, and what if this impacts their own ability to pay their mortgage? Is there any kind of support for that kind of profile of renter that might that this might completely put him in a financial burden because of the inability to collect rent?
All right, thank you for your question, Osvaldo. So there are some programs, I believe, that are there to help landlords. We have a resource page on the seattle.gov/renting in Seattle for landlords. I have some resources there. Unfortunately, the small landlord is the one who's going to suffer the most while these temporary ordinances are in place, because like you said, it's not about corporations, it's about people who are supplementing their income, or they have, a modest property that, that they're just making payments on based on receiving rent. But unfortunately, there's nothing as of yet from the city that's being offered. There was talk that some of that rent assistance money would be distributed maybe to landlords in situations where there would be a reduction on the amount of rent that was owed, and some sort of, but this is all just talk at the moment. I think the best thing to do would be to look at the resource list on the landlord resources page on the Renting in Seattle portal.
Thank you for the question and for the response. Are there any other questions at this time? Seeing none and hearing none, I'm going to continue. Dulcie, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. At this time, I would like to move on and introduce the General Manager and CEO of Seattle Public Utilities, Mami Hara. Director Hara, are you there?
I am. Hello,
Thank
everyone.
you. Go ahead.
Hi. Again, my name is Mami Hara, and I'm going to share some information about utility resources that are available to help through this difficult time. I'd like to note first that we're completely aligned with Seattle City Light as sister utilities of the city. So I'll be talking about resources that are available from both utilities. Next slide, please. So first, starting at the top of this table, for both residential and commercial customers, We're suspending utility shutoffs. We're also reconnecting any customer who previously had their service disconnected. Second, we're allowing more flexible payment plans for customers who indicate that they're having trouble paying their bill. This includes more flexibility on the amount of down payment that a customer can pay when setting up their payment plan, as well as the length of time they have to pay. Third, we're allowing income-eligible residential customers to do what we're calling a fast-track enrollment into the utility discount program, or what we call UDP for short. The UDP provides 50% off every SPU bill that a customer receives and 60% off the city light bill. And normally, a household has to submit proof of income documentation for each member of their household as part of their application to roll in the UDP. Now, in response to the COVID crisis, the city is allowing households who meet the income requirements to simply fill out a short online form in which they just state their income and household size and attest to the truthfulness of that by signing the form and submit it online for the fast track enrollment into the UDP. So far, over 8,000 households have used the fast track to enroll. Fourth, we're doing proactive outreach to small business customers who are delinquent in their payments to proactively offer and set up flexible payment plans. And finally, we're waiving late fees on overdue balances for both residential and commercial customers. Next slide, please. So how can customers access these various kinds of support? First, you can call the Utility Contact Center at 206-684-3000 between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. to set up a flexible payment plan and to learn more about our bill assistance programs. And you can access the fast track enrollment form for the utility discount program at seattle.gov/UDP. Or you can visit the Joint Utility Customer Portal or one of the utility-specific service hubs at the links listed here. We have a no wrong door approach and we'll get you where you need to go. Next slide, please. I want to reiterate that we're keeping utility services on, including limiting planned outages except as needed to respond to emergency situations, as we realize people are spending a lot more time at home and even a short outage can be very disruptive. I'd also like to alert you all that, sadly, there's been an increase in scams involving people posing as utilities and demanding payment. Please be on alert for this and please tell people you know. You will know that it's a scam if the caller demands immediate payment and threatens to shut off your utility services. And please report any suspected scams to the Utility Contact Center at 206-684-3000 because that will help us to track the scam down if possible. And next slide, please. And this is my final slide. I'd like to introduce you to a few programs and resources that are designed for both environmental sustainability, which includes using the energy and water and other resources you have more efficiently, while also saving your money on your bills. These programs are SPU's Water Conservation Program for residential customers, which can provide rebates for more efficient water fixtures in your house and help you reduce your water bills. SPU's Waste Prevention Program, which can help you reduce the amount of waste you generate at home that ends up in the garbage. SPU's Rainwise Program, which can provide a rebate for managing stormwater on your property with a rain garden. SPU's FOG Program, which is short for Fats, Grease, and Oils, which can help you prevent troublesome and sometimes very expensive clogs in your plumbing. And finally, City Light's energy efficiency programs, which can help you reduce your electric bills. We've provided links to these programs and for if you'd like to learn more, and you can also call our contact center if you'd like to speak to someone about any of these programs. They'll connect you to the right person right away. And that's all I have today. I look forward to your questions if you have any, and thank you for the opportunity to share. And please stay safe and be well, everyone.
Director Hara, thank you so much for your time and your very informative presentation. At this time, I want to invite if there's any questions for Director Hara, you can ask them now. You may type them in or hit *6 on your phone to unmute. Any questions? And don't forget, we are also posting links to all of these vital resources in the chat feature. Seeing none. Any questions? Seeing none? Hearing none. Director Hara, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Great. At this time, I would like to move on to one of my favorite parts of the webinar, our community partners. And today we have Denise Rodriguez, Executive Director of the Washington Homeowners Resource Center. Denise, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I just want to say thanks for having me on this call. I'm very much interested in making sure that everyone on the call and all of the people within your spheres of your daily life have information about what supports are out there that are available to homeowners who are experiencing hardship related to COVID, and just make you aware of resources that are available. Washington Homeownership Resource Center started as an organization in around 95 or 96, really as a clearinghouse for low and moderate income home buyers to find home buyer assistance. But we became more involved in foreclosure prevention in 2007, when we started to get more calls from homeowners in distress. In 2011, the state passed the Foreclosure Fairness Act, which provides some consumer protections to homeowners who are in default on their mortgage. It put some specific timing and notification requirements on that process. It gives homeowners quite a lot of rights. And it also created a statewide toll-free foreclosure prevention hotline, which WHRC has been the stewards of that hotline since its creation. So that's why I'm here talking to you today about foreclosure prevention in the time of COVID. Next slide, please. So we work primarily with homeowners, current homeowners and aspiring homeowners, and a very tiny slice of the population of renters. So with homeowners, we're helping them find resources and connect to foreclosure prevention services that are connected to both mortgage default foreclosure or property tax lien and property tax foreclosure. We also can connect homeowners to repair assistance. This is typically a senior homeowner or a person with a disability or a veteran. Most of the programs are geared towards those specific populations. We can help someone get connected to reverse mortgage counseling so they can understand the pros and cons of opting for a reverse mortgage, or even just general homeownership questions like understanding different refinancing options and why one might choose to refinance or not. For home buyers, we're really helping them look at their specific financial information and figure out whether they would be a good match for a community land trust homeownership model or self-help homeownership like Habitat, or down payment assistance. And then we can help them find pre-purchase counseling or home buyer education that is required by the programs that they might be looking at. And then for renters, we really specifically focus on renters who are experiencing a hardship as a result of their landlord's foreclosure. Renters do have rights in that circumstance, so we help them understand those rights, get to the resources to help them exercise those rights, and in cases where those rights have been violated, help them get to free to low-cost legal aid that can help them defend against that. Next slide, please. So we do all of this through our hotline. As I mentioned, this is a statewide toll-free hotline. If you take nothing from my talk today other than this number, you have done the right thing. I'm going to give you a lot of information about what is happening right now for homeowners in the time of COVID, but it's changing literally every day. So if you need help, if you know someone who needs help, if two weeks from now somebody contacts your office and it sounds like they could benefit from some help around their mortgage, the best thing to do is to refer them to the hotline, because we'll have that most up-to-date information at that time. And so we also have an online portal that a person can go in, make a short profile, and then request help online. It's a little bit more of a self-serve option, but the hotline is really great for people who want to connect with a person. Next slide, please. Now, what we're going to do on that hotline is we're going to listen to the homeowner's specific situation. We're going to get the details of what's going on. We're going to educate them about what their rights are in the particular moment that they're in their circumstances, what options might be available to them, and then we're going to get them to the appropriate resources. Next slide. And those resources typically include free housing counseling. Housing counseling is free if it is for the home in which you live. And that includes if you, say, live in a duplex and rent one unit out in your duplex and live in the other unit, that would count up to 4 units. So anything beyond that, so if you don't live on site, then there could potentially be a fee for the housing counseling. But if it's an owner-occupied dwelling, then the housing counseling would be free. Legal aid is offered on a sliding scale based on household income. So it's either going to be free or a sliding scale. We also connect with treasurers and assessors, both of whom are involved in either payment plans around property taxes or helping people process the applications for the various relief programs that exist in our state. And then we also connect with enforcement agencies. And I want to make sure that I emphasize that, because when we are in a time, and I heard this come up earlier too, in times like the ones we're in right now, we really start to see the predators come out. People are very vulnerable, they're scared, they are, you know, from a predator's perspective, they are ripe for the picking. They are going to, you know, fall for a lot of things. And so we always have our antenna up to make sure, are we hearing something that seems suspicious? Are we hearing it once or twice? Is it a trend? And then we can get people connected to the Attorney General's office or the Washington State Department of Financial Institutions or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to really help get those predators out of business. Next slide, please. So I want to cover briefly what is happening for homeowners right now in the time of COVID. So first and foremost, you've all probably heard about the foreclosure moratorium. It's actually multiple moratoria, and it's something that largely applies to enterprise-backed mortgages. You'll hear GSE, which is government-sponsored enterprise, or you'll hear enterprise-backed. This means any mortgage that is insured by either Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or the FHA or the VA or USDA. So these are all loans where the government has a stake in it, which allows the government to make rules about how that is handled. And the rule that they've made is that you cannot start a foreclosure process, proceed in one, or conclude one for this particular time frame, which has been extended once already and is now through August 31st of 2020. DFI, which is the Washington State Department of Financial Institutions, regulates loan servicers who are state licensed. So this would be like a Home Street Bank or a BECU, and they have issued some guidance to their licensees, asking them to honor a very similar moratorium that parallels what is happening at the federal level. Between these two things, in the state of Washington, this covers about 90% of residential mortgages. That still leaves a 10% small group where their loans are like private invested loans and would not be covered by these moratoria. So, you know, that would be a homeowner who has maybe fewer options. They could be in a situation where foreclosure would be able to be moving forward. I do want to say that even if someone cannot pay their mortgage on September 1st, they are not going to get turned out of their home on September 1st. Because of the Foreclosure Fairness Act, homeowners in Washington have a very long time frame in which to negotiate with their loan servicer to try and find new terms or payment plans that will work and be able to keep them in the home. And I believe the average amount of time it takes from missing your payment to a foreclosure in the state of Washington is over 196 days. So people have a lot of time to really work on something. And I like to make sure people know that, because most people are very afraid that if they can't make their September 1st payment, they'll be out within 14 days. And that's not how it's going to work for them. So that's the moratorium. There's also the CARES Act forbearance. So I also want to say forbearance is normally an option. A lot of loan servicers have always offered a forbearance, but these forbearances are typically only 3 months of forbearance, and they may not be renewable. At the end of that forbearance, you would owe 4 months of payments. So if you had a forbearance for July, August, and September, come October 1st, you'll have to pay all 3 of the payments that you skipped and your October 1st payment. Almost no one can do that, or they would have been paying all along. And so what happens is that then they go into mortgage default, and we start into this traditional foreclosure process that that we would normally see. During this time of COVID, the CARES Act is offering a special forbearance that is a 180-day forbearance. So that's about 6 months, and it is renewable up to 1 time, which would make it so a person could possibly skip their mortgage payments for a full year. It has to be indirectly or directly related to COVID. So this would cover somebody who is a small business owner and their income is reduced because of COVID, or someone who cannot work because of COVID. It might cover somebody in the situation of a duplex where their tenant isn't paying rent on the other unit and now they can't pay the mortgage. So that is something that is eligible. And again, this is for those enterprise-backed mortgages, and also for the DFI regulated loan servicers. One thing about this that is also important is there's no fees or penalties allowed during this forbearance, and also no lump payment at the end. There are a lot of options once that forbearance ends. So this is that last thing. There's some new post-forbearance options. So what we have are the existing options that have always been around, loan modification being the one that people most recognize. They've heard that. It came up a lot during the last recession. But there are even other options besides loan modifications. There's several different types of loan modification. So when the forbearance ends, they're going to be able to negotiate with their loan servicer potentially for a repayment plan or payment deferral or a loan modification. And this is really where a housing counselor comes in, really is very important, because the housing counselor can go over the household finances with the homeowner, help them figure out what kind of payment they can afford. Maybe the household income has shifted and they can't afford the same payment they had before. So if that's the case, the housing counselor can say these are the options that would work, and they can actually help negotiate with the loan servicer to get one of those options to happen, and help fill out the application. It's a lot of paperwork, and help fill out the application and get that turned in. So they're a really, really great resource. I recommend that people meet with a housing counselor even during their forbearance, just to sort of get a bearing of what might happen at the end, and then follow up when the forbearance ends. And yeah, I think that's all I have right now as far as what's happening. One thing that hasn't happened yet that we're hoping will happen is direct financial relief to homeowners. So we do know in the past, this is something that has happened. It was available in the last recession. Folks were able to get a 0% interest loan that was deferred payments. So they would be able to get a rescue loan to help them with, say, homeowners association dues or property taxes, or to take care of a balloon payment at the end of their forbearance. There are funds like that right now that are available if you are a resident of the city of Seattle and you are below a certain income. There is a program right now that exists in Seattle. And then there's a program for veterans in King County. So those are both levy funded, so that's why they're so specific. We're working really hard to advocate with our congressional delegation to get some funds that would be available statewide again, because we know that's going to be really helpful for people. Yes, so the question that I'm seeing in the chat is, does this apply only to owner occupants, or can someone apply for help when they are at risk of losing their rental property? It is for owner occupied properties, and owner occupied properties under certain guidelines can be up to 4 units. So a person can own a quadruplex and live in 1 unit and rent out the other 3. Anything larger than that is not counted, and if they don't live in the property, then it also is not counted. There would still potentially be options for them. They just might be more limited. So still worth calling the hotline and trying to get to work with a counselor. I'm open to take any questions. I know I also talked really fast. Sorry.
Denise, thank you very much. Gosh, that was a lot of great information. If you are on the phone and we'd like to ask a question, you can hit *6 to unmute your phone, or you can unmute your microphones at this time. Are there any other questions for our community partner, Denise? There is another question in the chat feature. Are there any fees for potential home buyers?
I think it depends on what fees. So home buyer classes are typically either free or $25 or $50, depending on what class they're going to take. Pre-purchase counseling can be up to $200, depending on the program the person's going into or what their household income is. A lot of the different homeownership programs have their own specific counseling, in which case it's part of the program and there isn't a fee for it. But most of the counseling agencies that do housing counseling offer pre-purchase counseling for a fee. I think it is a really great resource, even at a $200 per session counseling fee, because what they will do is go through the household financials and really look at the budget and figure out what kind of payment the household could afford. They'll help them run the different numbers that a mortgage broker might run and say, well, here's what you would get approved for. They'll look at their credit score, and they can give them advice that is 100% neutral and only has that home buyer's best interest in it. Everyone else involved in the home buying process typically is paid when the sale happens. So it's always a good idea to have somebody who's just strictly in your corner. They can go through your financials and tell you, here's how much is a reasonable payment that you would be able to make. You know, if the person needs more, they can give them guidance on how they might increase their income or reduce their expenses, on ways to improve their credit score so they can get a better interest rate. So it's actually a really robust analysis that helps them get ready to become a successful homeowner.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions? If not, and even if there are, actually, I'm going to open it up for the general Q&A right now. Denise, thank you very much for your information. At this time, I'd like to open it up. So if there are questions for any presentation that you heard today, or for DON, or any question that we can possibly help you with, please ask it now. *6 to unmute your phone. You can type them into the chat feature as well, or unmute your microphone. So are there any other questions? Thank you, Denise. She did put her email address in the chat box. It is Denise at homeownership-wa.org. Someone was about to speak. Please continue.
Hi, this is Wang Wang.
Yes.
I have a question, perhaps it's combined for Denise and Dulcie and maybe Mommy, but I'm not sure Mommy's still on. So the question is for tenants who are paying rent and their utilities payments are part of their rent, how can they access or be able to still receive the utility assistance program that Mommy was speaking of? Do you know how tenants who are paying with their rent, their utility bills, how they might receive that assistance?
I'm sorry, Wang. So you're talking about somebody who pays rent that includes their utilities? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
And it's not based on metering or?
Yeah, there are some households where they share, the meter, or they share the cost of the utilities kind of thing. And so it kind of gets built into their rent. So is there a way they might be able to qualify to get some of the assistance?
Well, I believe if they're eligible, then they would be entitled to get some relief on their utility bills. But as far as if they pay it directly or if it's third-party billing might be more complicated. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
Can I shed some light on that? Hello?
Yes, please. Who? Linda?
This is Linda Taylor. We're currently working a program similar to that with United Way. And what we do is just ask for the ledger, and we'll only pay a certain amount, and that has to include everything. So because we can't sort it out. So on this particular program that we're doing right now with United Way, we just take their total balance. But we don't pay it all. We have a sliding scale. And I'm with the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. We're doing some things with United Way. And the program Denise is talking about, Denise, the RFP just came out while you were talking. So I haven't read it for the nonprofits that have been working in this field to have some relief for homeowners.
Thank you, Linda. When, if I may, are you asking about rents that have utilities included? So
Right.
people who are not associated to possibly a utility account, how maybe perhaps their rent could be reduced because of their utility needs.
It was included. These things were included. And so whatever their balance was, it was included in our sliding scale, because we had a scale on which we would pay, and the landlord had to forgive what was the difference, because we had to start somewhere.
So I believe that this might be a question that has multiple answers depending on the situation involved, and we're happy to reach out to SPU and to other departments to see what exactly we can do to answer this a little more precisely.
Thank you. And Linda actually did answer quite a bit. So thank you, Linda. I appreciated that answer. It helped a lot.
You're very welcome. That's just how we worked this last program. And when the city comes to us for suggestions, we're going to do the same. Because a lot of the landlords are, especially the larger ones, are receiving dollars that covers this. And so say for instance, the person owed January, February, March. Well, no, that's wrong months, but we would only pay February.
Oh, Linda, did we lose you? We may have lost her.
Oh, I said, and we would only pay that at a sliding scale at that. We only paid 2 of the 3 delinquent months and asked the landlord to forgive a month. Most landlords are forgiving. They didn't start out that way, but the more extensions that they see coming on and know that they'll get no money, they're accepting it and they're forgiving. I think we've had about 6,000 people. Not quite sure of the number. Everybody did not qualify.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for everyone for your participation in that answer. It's a team effort here. Are there any other questions that you'd like on anything you've heard today, or any general questions that anyone may have? You can ask them at this time. I don't see any in the chat. No one is coming forward. I think I'm going to continue. Thank you, everyone. If we can go to the next slide. So again, I want to just reiterate, if you do have any questions, type them into the chat feature. We're happy to get back to anybody. Just type in your question and your information. You can email our email address, COVID-19 community webinars at seattle.gov with your questions as well. At this time, I'd like to, seeing as we are running about a minute over, I want to quickly introduce a new little segment that we're doing, Stay Informed, Stay Connected. We are putting together some items for every public that to help you stay informed and stay connected on things going on in our city. A couple that I'd like to mention and highlight for you are the tomorrow, July 26th, I'm sorry, this Sunday, July 26th, is the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Seattle channel will be having airing special programming celebrating this anniversary from 2 to 5 p.m. There will be a link in the chat for the Seattle channel link to that live airing, which you can use at any time, but the programming will not be until Sunday, July 30th from 2 to 5. Another item I want to quickly point out for everyone is on Saturday, August 15th, Seattle Parks and Recreation invites everyone to join the free Big Day of Virtual Play event. This event is a celebration of our city's diversity, and it encourages neighbors, communities, and families to have fun, build relationships, and be active together. The link is on the slide in front of you at this time, and it is also in the chat feature. We can go on to the next slide. There are other events and different links included on these Stay Informed, Stay Connected slides. But if you do know of any others that should be emphasized as the conversation unfolds, just invite you to also reach out to us and let us know, and we're happy to include those events on this Stay Informed, Stay Connected in future presentations. I just want to thank everyone, all of our presenters today, for taking the time to share their information with us. I would also like to thank all of the community members who participate in the discussion, both presenting and answering questions. The Seattle Department of Neighborhoods will continue to host webinars every second and fourth Fridays from 2:30 to 4 p.m. to keep our local community informed. You can help us improve these webinars by providing feedback through our survey. If we can go to the next slide. One more, please. The link for this survey is there at the bottom. It is also being posted in our chat feature as well. These webinars are recorded and available on the Seattle Department of Neighborhoods blog at frontporch.seattle.gov. However, if you would like to receive a copy of the slide presentation you saw today, we will also make those changes on dates as well. Please email COVID-19 community webinars at seattle.gov. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Stay healthy, stay safe, and this webinar is now concluded. We will be leaving the meeting open so that you may grab any links from the chat feature you need. We'll be leaving it open for 10 minutes. And yeah, this webinar is now concluded. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Hey, Esprit, would you be able to just go back one slide for about the night out?
Thank you.
Thank you.